It's time for the Newsmaker Show on AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Well, good morning, and we are here on the Newsmaker Show for Thursday, April 21st, 2016. This is John Lewis filling in for Brian O'Neill, and we are here with our normal Thursday guest, Dr. Christian Koff from University of Colorado in Boulder. Dr. Koff, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. It's great to talk to you. I'm in a great mood today.
Yes, great. We're talking just a couple of days now after the New York State primaries, and we've got some big news that has been coming out since the primaries, and we had a tip yesterday on our show, Dr. Koff, from Dr. Robert Heineman. Dr. Heineman's our normal Friday guest, but he joined us Wednesday, right after the primaries, then in the morning, Wednesday morning, and he said that from his inside sources that New York delegates are planning to be stolen by John Kasich. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that could happen?
I think the word from the inside people, and I haven't got the great resources and sources that Dr. Heineman has, but I know a few people, is that Kasich has been promised the nomination by the leadership of the party if they can make it through the first round. And they've got things set up. Now, of course, Cruz doesn't go along with that, but the party leaders would like to see him as the nominee of the party. And so it depends on what happens. If Trump can get enough votes to win the first round, or win and negotiate for enough to win the first round, he will win. But the party leaders have pretty much set it up so that he won't get it if he doesn't win in the first round. So I think, yes, putting Kasich people in who are pledged to vote for Trump for the first round, but will desert him after the first round, is now the party strategy. And when this is brought up, and it's also, Cruz obviously has a similar related strategy. We now know, of course, because of New York, that neither Kasich nor Cruz can mathematically win a majority of delegates. So that's now mathematically excluded. So if they were serious, of course, about getting the strongest candidate, they would withdraw. Instead, of course, they both plan to try and win on the second or third or fourth ballot by arranging to have people pledged to Trump on the first ballot who will then desert Trump on later ballots in New York, in Louisiana, and in South Carolina.
And at that point, maybe they would, for lack of a better word, trump Trump at that point.
They would be able to trump him by the fact that the delegates are not truly committed to Trump. They are their own delegates who would have to legally vote for him on the first ballot, but would then desert him. And then an establishment candidate of which the preference of the party leadership is Kasich. Although certainly Cruz is a very smart operator, and he's also been manipulating things to get him a second or third ballot victory.
Sure. And what we're seeing, what we kind of hear in the media, in the bigger media, is Cruz maybe stealing those delegates. But it does sound like Kasich is more of the party line, that the party wants Kasich to get those delegates, not only in New York, but wish they could in other areas as well.
Yes, that's absolutely true. My understanding is that, because otherwise, Kasich is, Cruz cannot mathematically win a majority, but it's only off by a few. Kasich, it's by 200%. He isn't close. But my understanding is he has been promised by the party leaders the nomination, and all he has to do is stay in.
Okay.
They've asked him to stay in, and if he does, they promise they will get him the delegates on one of the later ballots.
Okay. And so he's doing as told, as what he wants to do too. Stay in the race, maybe even keep a lower profile, and stay to the course.
His main thing now is not to offend people.
Great.
And
sure.
Because his views are very liberal, he really has to keep quiet.
Okay.
Nominating him will be a worse disaster than nominating Cruz, because there are some people enthusiastic for Cruz, though not many. But in the case of Kasich, he's bad on religious freedom. He's bad on Obamacare. He's bad on immigration. There's really no difference between Kasich and Hillary Clinton, except that, frankly, Hillary isn't very competent and would probably screw up most of the things she's trying to do, whereas Kasich is very competent and would actually get through his views on immigration, Obamacare, and free trade.
Okay. And Kasich, you're saying it would be best for him to quiet down. What about those other candidates on the Republican side then? Do you think they should maybe even share in a little bit of that with Trump and Cruz?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Do you mean people like Rubio that still have delegates, although they're...
Right. Well, what I'm thinking is maybe if Trump quieted down a little bit, maybe it would be a little bit easier for him as well. He seems to be getting into some pinches here and there.
He has moved in a bunch of very competent people to assist him. He understood those sort of bad weeks just before and after Wisconsin were very bad.
Okay, sure.
And he has basically not done anything except bring out the fact that Cruz has been winning delegates by a way that excludes the average voter and the ordinary committed American. But aside from that, he's been very low-key, and that's been great for his campaign.
Right.
More that his campaign is about immigration and trade deals and a temporary ban on Muslim immigration and refugees, the better he does. And the more he tweets things about, personalities and people's wives and things like that, the less good he does.
Sure.
So New York is important. He has so far, though he's done very well in important states like Florida and Michigan, he tends to do slightly less well than the polls indicate. In New York, the opposite was true. The polls were anywhere from 53 to 54%, and he won 60%. So when he is quiet, stays focused, talks about the issues, and doesn't bring up personal things, he does very well. And this has now put Cruz in a bad situation where he's the one who's having to respond to things. And there was just a few nights ago this explosion on the Sean Hannity radio show where he objected to being asked serious questions.
Yes, and wonderful. How seamless. I was just going to ask, what is your take on this, the Sean Hannity versus Senator Cruz, right on the Sean Hannity show?
So you were in a process of talking to delegates, and it seems to be very extensive. Can you explain to people what's going on?
Sean, with all respect, that's not what people are concerned about. I'm campaigning every day. People are concerned about bringing jobs back to America. People are concerned about raising wages. People are concerned about getting the federal government off the backs of small businesses. And people are concerned about beating Hillary. And the media loves to obsess about process. This process and this whining from the Trump campaign is all silly. It's very, very simple.
Senator, hang on a second. Senator, I'm on social media with millions of people. I have 550 radio stations, and I have the top-rated cable show in my hour all across the board. And I am telling you that people are telling me that they find this whole process confusing. I can read the articles, for example, about, what people want to know what actually happened in Georgia this weekend, where people that I guess on the first ballot are going to Donald Trump, but representatives of yours talk to them and are persuading them to vote for you on a second ballot. That is an important question because I think most people would like to know how this works. And I really am asking you, it's more than a process question. It's an integrity of the election question, and everybody's asking me this question. So I'm giving you an opportunity to explain it.
Sean, the only people asking this question are the hardcore Donald Trump supporters.
Why do you do this every single time? No, you got to stop. Every time I have you on the air and I ask a legitimate question, you try to throw this in my face. I'm getting sick of it. I've had you on more than any other candidate on radio and TV. So if I ask you, Senator, a legitimate question to explain to the audience, why don't you just answer it?
Sean is, in my opinion, and he's a very focused person. He stays on message as far as what he's trying to get across. He's the number 2 radio person after Rush Limbaugh.
Sure.
And because of the interviews he does, there are many ways in which he's better than Rush because of the interviews. But he was asking Cruz very serious questions. He wasn't just throwing softballs up, And Cruz exploded as soon as it was clear that he was going to have to answer serious questions, and accused him of being in Trump's control. And we've seen this again and again when anybody tries to say, why is Trump popular? Let's talk about the reasons why. People then accuse them of being belonging to Trump. And that's not true of Sean. Sean, this is a great moment for Sean. He's been able to put himself in the center of the national conversation. He's been very professional about it. And then when he behaves professionally, Cruz loses his temper.
And we're talking with Dr. Christian Koff, our regular Thursday guest. Dr. Koff, here in New York State, Hillary did win by a slight margin. But here in Steuben County, where WLEA is located, in Hornell, Bernie Sanders did beat Hillary Clinton. Your thoughts on that?
Well, both about Steuben County and also about really all of upstate New York. In terms of numbers of voters, Hillary won and won it well. Not Trump level, but well. But if you look geographically, Bernie Sanders won almost every county in the state except for large urban areas. There's Buffalo, there's Syracuse, Rochester, New York City, and Long Island. Otherwise, Bernie won almost every single county in the state.
Thank you, Dr. Koff, our normal Thursday guest here on the Newsmaker Show. Dr. Koff from the University of Colorado in Boulder. Could you leave us with any final thoughts this morning?
Here's a statistic that appeared in Harper's Magazine. Since 1993, according to Social Security, the popularity of the name Hillary has gone down 80%.
Okay.
That's something to think about.
Yeah, interesting final thought. Very interesting. And thank you, Dr. Koff, our normal Thursday guest.
Great talking to you, John.
Yes, great talking with you. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We've been speaking with Dr. Christian Koff. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, more clips from the Sean Hannity Show. We talked about Sean Hannity today, and we're going to finish out with a clip from the Sean Hannity Show. This is Sean speaking with surrogates for the three Republican candidates.
News roundup, information overload hour here on the Sean Hannity Show. We have representatives of all three of the candidates. D.C. McAllister, senior contributor to the Federalist, a Ted Cruz supporter. Michael Cohen, executive vice president and special counsel to Donald Trump. Ami Horowitz is a John Kasich supporter. Welcome all of you back to the program. Glad you got with us. The number one issue that people want resolved, at least in their minds, D.C., I'll start with you, is this whole idea of how the delegates and the courting of delegates and what's actually going on. For example, James Baker, he ran the Ford delegate operation, summed up the strategy of any effective delegate operation, quote, acquire delegates, protect your delegates, and steal other delegates. There's an NBC, a Real Clear Politics story today, an NBC reporter, Cruz to win half of Pennsylvania's delegates, even if he comes in a distant third. Is that possible?
It is possible. It just depends from state to state. It all varies as far as how the delegates are allocated.
Doesn't that if somebody comes in a distant third, let's forget who it is, they can get more than half the delegates even if they come in a distant third. Does that seem right to you?
Well, it seems right to me as far as how the system is based as a representative system. And if the delegates are chosen by the people themselves and the delegates can choose, then that can happen. Depending on how the primaries are run or how the caucuses are run.
Michael, if Donald Trump were to come in a distant third in Pennsylvania and he got half the Pennsylvania's delegates, how would you feel about that?
Well, look, I don't even want to talk about, to be honest with you, this whole delegate notion anymore. Anybody that doesn't believe that this delegate nonsense isn't robbing the people of their democratic right, it's the American people who are supposed to vote to choose the president, not the delegates. To me, the system is flawed. It's wrong, and I don't think anybody thinks that the system is right. If you win the popular vote in that state, you should win the delegates. And the fact that Ted Cruz is running around and buying people and playing this dirty game in order to try to prevent Mr. Trump, which he won't be successful in getting to the 1237, there's nothing anybody can say. It is what it is.
Well, what do you mean? But what do you mean buying delegates? How is he buying them?
Well, he's whining and he's dining them, and they're offering them trips in order to bring the delegates onto their side. It's wrong. The system is flawed. They're allowing it, and I believe that the RNC is allowing this to happen, and they shouldn't be.
Michael, do you have proof of that you want to offer up?
No, I don't have the proof.
Well, then why are you saying it if you don't have any proof? You're just making allegations that you have nothing to back it up with.
Let me ask. Let me ask a question. Is it legal if for example, there's another story today in the Missouri Times, and it's out of Jefferson City, Missouri, and it's the headline is Delegate Selection Leads to Schism in Missouri GOP. The article starts out, it says, when the Missouri Republican Party held their county caucuses across the state April 9th, they selected slates of delegates that will go to the state and congressional districts to vote for the final delegates sent to Cleveland for the Republican National Convention this November. But some Republicans, namely supporters of Donald Trump, are raising their eyebrows at the process and raising their voices to oppose what they see as an unfair practice. And then they go on to talk about how some of the delegates from the very districts that voted for, where the people voted for Trump, are being replaced by Ted Cruz delegates. Is that because Ted Cruz is playing the ground game better, or does that rob representation of people voting? Does that take away people's incentives ultimately to vote?
Well, first of all, these people are bound to vote according to their state and primaries on that first ballot. So this idea that he's just taking away and stealing votes is not true. And as far as influencing and changing them on the second ballot, all the candidates can talk to these people and can actually try to make a case for their candidacy. That doesn't mean they're buying them. There's actually bribery laws on the books, and these people cannot be bribed.
Well,
so this idea of
hang on, I have a question. In the course of talking to somebody, can you take them out to dinner?
You can take them out to dinner, but as far as like paying for their convention.
Hold on 1 second.
You can pay for their convention. You can pay for them to go to the convention. But all the candidates can do that. But you can't give them gifts and you can't give them promises of political favors and this kind of thing.
What do you mean pay for their convention? What do you mean?
Sean,
pay for them to go to the convention. But all the candidates can pay for delegates to go to the convention if it's their delegate.
That's not bribery. You have
That's not bribery, and all the delegates can, and all the candidates can do that, Michael.
There's 535 members between the House and the Senate. So far, Cruz has, 3 or 4 of them saying positive things about him? The guy is completely disliked. He can't get along with anybody. But yet, somehow or another, because of his wonderful disposition and personality, he seems to be able to get delegates to come onto his side.
Because he is talking to grassroots people. He is talking to grassroots people.
I don't care what anybody says. They're turning around. They're offering things that they shouldn't be doing.
Do you have proof of that? You better stop making allegations of illegalities against Ted Cruz without proof.
Wait. So, everybody calm down. I want to know what the rules are. You are saying that that any candidate can pay for what? Transportation, a plane ride. They can pay for what?
Convention.
Hotel. Hang on. Pay for the plane to the convention. Can they pay for hotels at the convention?
For the delegate, not the families.
Okay, and can they pay? Well, if the family's with them, I assume they're going to stay in the room. But can pay for Can they pay for meals for the delegates?
Yes, but not lavishly, not extravagantly so.
And how do you define extravagantly?
It's different from state to state, and different laws and legislation it handles that. But there is no bribery allowed.
You know, for a lot of people,
you're really great at twisting the line here. You know, what's really funny is if you look at the number of delegates that Trump has versus Cruz, Trump would have an A and Ted Cruz would have a C minus.
Let me ask you this.
Let me finish. Here's exactly what's happening. Cruz is like the boy who got the C minus, goes in, brings the teacher an apple or a gift card, and then gets an A. All right? No matter what you say, it's wrong. The system is wrong, and exactly what Ted Cruz is doing is wrong.
Michael, I can't believe I'm going to agree with you, Michael, on this, but listen, is the system wrong? Maybe, maybe not. Do I think they should be paying for delegates, flights, and dinners? No. Should the convention and should the way they choose delegates in Colorado be the way they choose delegates in Colorado? Maybe not. But here's the bottom line. Michael, we knew all of this when all of our candidates got in the ring. To argue about it now as sour grapes is ludicrous. If you want to be involved, Michael, you have a great legal mind. If you want to get involved in the next convention and prior to that to set up the rules going forward, I think you should do that. But the reality is Those are the rules that are set up for this particular election. I don't know why you're crying sour grapes about it now.
By the way, nobody's crying sour grapes. It's a question that was posed, to us, trying to advocate upon, for our, for the individual that we want and so on. But no matter how you describe it, it's wrong, right? You're taking away the will of the people. You're giving it instead to delegates that are chosen by the party leaders. And
okay, you may be right about that, Michael. You really might be. But that's not the point. The point is that's not the way we're choosing the candidate today for this election.
Can I ask Ami a question? Ami, and look, I actually think there needs major reform. You're right in your observation that everybody knew the rules going in. And now we know even more about the rules because there is the courting of delegates. For example, candidate A is courting candidate B's delegates if there's a second ballot. And we now know that they can buy them dinner and pay for their hotel room and their plane. Okay, so we got that all out of the way, and everybody knew the rules going in. The problem is here, it doesn't meet the smell test for me. In other words, why do all the people go out and vote and they get a delegate that's supposed to represent their point of view? And I don't care who it happens to be. And then all of a sudden, if somebody else comes in with wine and steak and I don't know, a hotel room and a plane ticket, well, maybe I am interested in changing that.
Well, number one, John, you don't know that that's happening. First of all, you're kind of assuming delegates are being swayed in that way.
Well, maybe I'm only going by what you said.
Let me answer this question. No, I just said that's what that can happen legally. I'm not saying that's what is happening. Maybe Ted Cruz is actually making a case that he could be the better president to these people. Also, I have a question to ask. In South Carolina, 2/3 of the people did not vote for Donald Trump, yet he gets all the delegates. Is that fair? In Florida, most of the people who voted did not vote for Donald Trump, yet he gets all the delegates. Is that fair? This is how our system is. It's different from state to state. And when you start talking about being unfair and representation and the will of the people, you need to be consistent. Also, Donald Trump has won caucuses. Is he going to give back his votes for those caucuses?
Interesting here, Sean. I think both of you are missing the point. The point here is that the RNC is allowing this to happen because they intend on rewriting the rules, like, for example, this Rule 40B. And what's going to happen is it's not – assuming it's that nobody gets to the 1237, they're not going to choose Kasich, and they're not going to choose Cruz either. They're going to put in whoever they want, and then you're all going to sit there and say, wow, we should have listened to Trump and said that the system is rigged and it needed to be handled during the process, not afterwards, because they don't want Kasich, and for sure nobody wants Cruz.
Well, but let me just dispel this notion about this 40B and the rewriting of the rules. Let's be clear. It's not the rewriting of the rules. Those rules were for the last convention. Every convention has new rules. When you have new rules for a new convention, you're not rewriting the old rules. You're creating the new guidelines for this particular convention.
The guidelines are being created after the California primary. So
Correct.
You're rewriting the rules to fit what you want. You can call it whatever you want. They're rewriting the rules knowing what they want to accomplish.
But again, that's every convention. Every convention, people have interest going. The delegates.
They're going to rewrite the rules so Kasich will have no shot either. See, he's just sticking around, despite the fact he's mathematically out of the race, thinking that somebody must have promised him something in the future, right? Or maybe he would be the nominee. They're not going to make Kasich, and they're not going to make Cruz. So, this whole notion that everything
what do you mean
is
they're
fine,
not going
it's
to?
not
You don't know
fine.
that.
It's against the will of the people, and the people have a right to choose who they want.
Actually chose delegates, and also the only candidate in this race who does not want to change the rules at all is Ted Cruz. Donald Trump wants to throw out the majority rule, which is ridiculous, and Kasich and the rest of them want to change all the rules. The only candidate here that's consistent in saying let's keep it all as is in fairness is Ted Cruz.
Well, Kasich, what do you mean Kasich is trying to throw out all the rules? Kasich wants
he wants to throw out Rule 40B.
That's not a rule for the new convention. That was a rule for the last convention. Not throwing it out.
It's in place right now, and it would not be fair to keep that in.
That's not the way that the structure is. It's a clean slate going in, and you create new rules. The ones from the old rules have no precedence over these rules for this convention. That's
not the majority rule, Ami. Not the majority. They need to get a majority.
No, the majority rule is a rule that's across.
So I'll agree with you on that one.
Agreed.
But Michael does not agree on that. Trump wants to cheat.
Sean,
isn't 1237 a random number?
Here,
just picked
they
it up
have
out of
Ted
thin air.
Cruz sitting there and saying, we don't want to nominate a loser, right? And he's referring, of course, to Mr. Trump. The funny question here is, what makes Ted Cruz a winner? He's losing substantially by the delegate count. Wow, he had a victory. Wait till you see what happens today in New York, and wait till you see what happens on the Northeast, and then in California. As far as I'm concerned, he's never, ever created a single job, ever, other than for himself. He's been on the government take since the day he finished law school. He'd probably be a very good judge, but as far as being a president, as far as being able to create jobs, as far as being able to balance a budget, the guy's out of his league. The only guy at the table right now who can accomplish this, who can make America great again, who could bring jobs back to this country, the only one that's talking about it is Donald Trump. So I'm just going to ask you two to come out and endorse him.
D.C. McAllister, thank you. Ami, thank you. Michael Cohen, thank all of you. We appreciate it. Boy, it's getting brutal out there. I told you, it's getting tough.
That's it for today's show. I'm John Lewis. Brian Kilmeade is next.